Hello everybody. Today I want to talk about longevity in the sport of powerlifting. Now this is something that I get asked about pretty routinely, and to give a bit of a disclaimer, maybe I'm not the perfect model of this. I've only been competing in powerlifting for 7 years, which in the grand scheme of things might not be that long, and especially compared to some lifters that have been around much longer than myself. But I think that I do have a bit of a unique perspective, having worked through a sort of 3-year injury. Gives me a bit of a vantage point on some of the things that unfortunately will end up deterring a lot of younger lifters. Now there are a few main points that I want to talk about today. One of those is going to be being more process oriented, and this kind of runs parallel with intrinsic motivation. We'll go through the differences between extrinsic and intrinsic motivation and how that can contribute to your success long term. And the last thing I want to talk about is focusing on your locus of control. All these things kind of tie in together pretty well, so I'll try to make this nice and succinct and tie everything in together as we get to the end of it all. So the first thing we're going to dive into is sort of defining some of these terms. Now the first big comparison we want to make to illustrate for you guys is going to be the difference between being goal-oriented, which is very much running parallel to being extrinsically motivated, versus being process-oriented, or very commonly known as being a little bit more intrinsically motivated. Now, goal orientation or extrinsic motivation is going to be linking your sort of feelings of success and feelings of self-worth even to exterior motivators and exterior factors. So things like winning awards, beating competitors, placing on the podium, breaking records, hitting qualifying totals, and all that kind of stuff. Now, while extrinsic motivation I think is important when we're talking about directing our efforts, if we don't have something like that to work towards, it can feel hard to get motivated in the first place. However, what I think more people could use more of is more intrinsic motivation, focusing on the process, trying to set yourself up for little wins in training, and this is a big one. So if the weight on the bar didn't go up this week, did you move the bar better? Was the RPE a little bit less? Did you maybe lock out your deadlift better? Was your squat depth better? Did you pause your bench for a more clean rep? Setting yourself up for these feelings of success, even perceived feelings of success, can be a big step towards harnessing and cultivating more intrinsic motivation. So when we're talking about process orientation, we're talking about learning to essentially fall in love with the process of training, to learn to enjoy the day-to-day and the act of going in and improving, however slightly, on some quality of your training, so that when you get injured or you plateau and things that we're extrinsically motivated by, like those qualifying totals, those medals, those records, aren't getting any closer, at least we can focus on how much we enjoy doing things every single time we come into the gym, and improving on those, like I said, however slight the quality is, and making those little improvements from day to day and from session to session. So my point here is that by becoming more process oriented and more intrinsically motivated, we can ideally weather the storm, if you will, of the times when things that are outside of our control fall off, when we're not able to make progress, when we get injured, when we see setbacks, when we have external life stress, and all of these things, when they start to pile on and we have a hard time still loving the process, we can focus on that process and have that intrinsic motivation to fall back on, and have that reward of doing the thing itself, because we've trained ourselves or chosen to focus on those qualities a little bit more when the going is good, so that when the going gets rough, we have that to fall back on. The next big thing I want people to take away from this video is to learn to understand the difference between internal and external locus of control. Now, internal locus of control is things like your nutrition, your sleep, your focus, and your sort of directed energy when you're in the gym and when you're doing these things. That external locus of control is going to be things like competitors' performances, increasing qualifying totals, tough judging calls, and all those kinds of things that are out of your own control, things that you can't directly influence towards a specific outcome. And the reason I think it's important to understand this difference is so that we can focus on those things that are inside of our control. So we can focus on our nutrition, we can focus on our sleep, the quality of our training, we can focus on our psychological approach to training, and how we're directing our energy when we're in the gym, when we're at home, things like visualization and imagery practice, positive self-talk, and all of these things, which hopefully we can dive a little more into on this channel. But all those things are within your control, and that's where you should be investing your energy. Worrying about whether or not your competitor's on drugs, or whether they're gonna beat you, or whether their training's going well, or they're getting injured, or whatever, none of that's in your control. So spending all of your time thinking and worrying about that, it's just a waste of energy. So in closing, I hope I've at least given you guys some starting points to do maybe your own research into some of these things when it comes to being more process oriented, focusing more on our internal locus of control, and being a little bit more intrinsically motivated. Now, by sort of maximizing these three things or learning how to cultivate those within yourself to a greater extent, I hope that we can all move forward and get more out of the sport and be around for a longer period of time, which is gonna get us closer to our full potentials. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you have any questions about anything that I've mentioned, please ask them down below. Leave a like if you liked it. Share it with your friends if you want. And make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more. We'll see you guys next time.